How y'all doing?
Good.
All right. I'm not the best with names, so I write names down, then I can get to do what I usually do good. Richard Soren and Bert Soren, just a round of applause for those guys. I first met those guys back in, I think, 2003. They were at a conference and they asked me to pick up a dumbbell, so I did, and walked with it, and Richard's mouth hit the floor. I was like, was that good? He was like, yeah, that was really good. Double A, Dan McKim, these guys are the best. That's family to me. These guys are family. Listening to Bert this morning talk about all the 10 Bs, I hope everybody had a chance to write those things down, because that is something you can really help other people with. Listening to Eric Serrano, knowing your craft, Jim Curitzey, the passion and knowledge that he shared with everybody, I couldn't take enough notes. I really appreciate him. Alex Oliver, it took me a while to recover. Felt like first time I went scuba diving, I was scared to death. He had me underwater for an hour, and I was scared I was going to run out of oxygen. That's how it felt. And Brandon Lilly, first time I met Brandon, I was doing some squats and he gave me the head nod. I was like, I said, that's good. That's good. You get a head nod from Brandon Lilly on squats. And I like to, my wife is here. We've been married 21 years. Put up with me for 21 years. Like when she met me, I don't even know how she even wanted to go out on a date from the first time she met me. I'm not going to tell you how she saw me and what I was doing with my college roommate and some other girl on the dance floor. I'm not going to talk about that. But, oh, you didn't see that part? All right, that never happened. That never happened. I'm just going, I got way too much in this presentation. I know I do, but I'm gonna try to get through it as much as I can. Bert called me up. Here's the amazing thing about it. I was just telling one of my friends, I said, I gotta get to Summer Strong. I've never been to Summer Strong. I've gotta get to Summer Strong. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I'm living in Arkansas. My family's living in Missouri. I don't wanna take time away from my family, but I gotta figure out how to do it. 3 days later, I got a call from Bert. He said, hey, would you like to come to Summer Strong and speak? And I said, no way, how does that work? How does that work? So it's a pleasure to be here with you all. So many people that I know and respect have been here and they speak nothing but the best about this. I'm gonna jump into what I have here. So behind me is what's called Chinese bamboo. I don't know if you know the story about Chinese bamboo, but for 4 years after it's planted, it stays in the ground. And in the 5th year, it grows at a rate of 3 feet per day. It can grow up to 80 feet within 60 days. Now, I never heard the story about Chinese bamboo until my defensive coordinator in college told me about Chinese bamboo. He said, you're like Chinese bamboo. Like, what does that mean? He said, look it up. Well, I spent 4 years in college before I became a starter as a senior. So the story of Chinese bamboo is it spent 4 years in the ground, the 5th year it sprouts up. And that's what happened. That's what happened. I had a chance to play in the NFL and do some good things. But as I look back on where I am, I still feel like I'm in the ground and I'm just working, my roots are growing, and I'm ready to come back up. I think that's part of the grind. I think that's part of the work. I think that's part of just wanting to do some great things. So I'm gonna take you through, I got about 60 pictures, and that's how I'm gonna tell my journey. Because Bert asked me, I said, what do you want me to talk about? What should I talk about? He said, talk about your transitions. I said, well, to talk about my transitions, they gotta know a little bit about me. So this is not the actual picture, but what's behind me represents an actual event. When my mom was 6 months pregnant with me on Labor Day weekend, 1972, my dad was driving, they were in a car accident. My mom was knocked unconscious, broken jaw, and Obviously, at that point, we didn't know who was going to be alive and who wasn't. But when I learned about this story, and I'm reminded of this story because when my mom eats, she still has fake teeth implants, but there's still numbness in her face, and we have to remind her every time, when she's eating, Mom, you have something on your lip. Well, that's from 40 something years ago from an accident that she still doesn't quite have the feeling from. So I learned a long time ago that my mom was a survivor, my dad was a survivor, and I was a survivor. I made it through, so I think about that all the time. So when times get tough, and when I got to dig down, I just remember, there was a car upside of a post where we didn't know what was going to happen. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. And I've seen the good parts and I've seen the bad parts. I've seen where my dad left the state of Georgia to come to Detroit, Michigan. My mom left the state of Alabama to come to Michigan for a better life. My dad ended up working, it's my dad, that's me and my sister. He ended up working at Chrysler, ended up retiring from Chrysler after being laid off and things like that. We saw some rough times, but I saw my mom and dad always work those things out. That's me. I don't know, what is that? That's probably about first grade with the hair. I just wanted you all to see that I had hair. My kids don't believe I had hair, so that was me. This is the house I grew up in. Houses where I grew up around all had bars on them for a reason. It was to keep other people out of your house, because every house on the street had been broken into, every car probably had been stolen. Just typical hearing gunshots at night, hear gunshots, you count them out of nights, you hear gunshots in a row, then you get on the floor and you get back, you hear the gunshot stop, then you get back in your bed and go to sleep, get up and go to school the next day. Or on Fridays in middle school, you run home on Fridays because there's going to be fights and gunshots because 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are going to be shooting guns. So you learn that. You hurry up and get home because there's going to be people that want to fight you, people threatening to shoot you, people with swinging chains. That's just the way it's going to be. I remember one time in front of this house, I came home and these two guys followed me home. And they are working me over against the car. My dad worked midnights. So he heard something, he looked down and he saw these two guys. I'm just protecting myself. And they're working me over on the car. They finish doing what they do. I go in the house, act like nothing happened. And I hear my dad, the bedroom was upstairs, I hear, Patrick. Yes. He said, what was that? I was like, what was what? What was that outside? I said, these two guys followed me home. And he said, don't ever let that happen again. Don't ever let someone do that to you on your own property, at your own house. I said, yes, sir. I wasn't really able to protect myself. There were older guys in the neighborhood. It was a rough neighborhood. I was a mama's boy. Mama always protected me. So I was an easy target. But I had to learn how to protect myself. Dad driving a Chrysler truck. So what my mom did, when I was 10 years old, she dropped me off at the football field. The East Side Cowboys, Detroit, Michigan. And I wanted to quit. I remember crying. I remember getting sick. And I remember Mom saying, you can stay here, but the one thing you don't want to do is be late. So I suggest you get on your bike and start pedaling. And that's what I did every day. And coaches were tough. They were good. They were tough. We went my first year playing football at 10 years old, we went undefeated and unscored on the entire season. Undefeated, unscored on, and anytime there was a mistake in practice, hit a lap. So we learned how to be disciplined. We learned how to be tough. My coach lived in the projects. Missing teeth, gold teeth. How you have a gold tooth next to a missing tooth? I don't know. Why don't you just get that fixed? I learned responsibility by being a Newspaper boy. Now try being a newspaper boy in the city. You got to dodge pit bulls and Rottweilers. When I was coming home from practice, they would throw rocks at me, so I rode home with my helmet on from football practice. So I had to learn a few things about being a business person at the age of 11 years old and protect myself. You got to get the papers, you got to get it to your people, you got to collect the money, and it's not easy collecting money in the inner city. All of a sudden they're home, you ring the doorbell, no one's home. You have to learn how to work. But these people, I learned how to develop relationships with them. They became my customers. I shoveled their snow. I delivered the papers, I shoveled their snow, I cut their grass, and I sold them anything I could sell them that came from school. So I learned how to build relationships and have my own little thing going. So this is the high school helmet. This represents the high school helmet. I went to Cass Tech High School. It's Cass Technical High School. You have to take a test to get into it. The one thing I did have, as things were falling down around me in the city, was a strong house. Mom, dad, sister. And I got good grades. And I studied a lot. There was no choice. When the other kids come home, they play. When we came home, we had to study. So I learned the value of hard work and studying. So I went to Cass Technical High School. It was the #1 ranked high school in the state of Michigan academically. It's pretty tough. I graduated with a certificate in electrical engineering from high school. So that was what I wanted to be in college. I wanted to be an engineer. So my path to college, just backing up a little bit, I also caddied for 5 years at the Detroit Private Golf Club. Single bags, double bags, you learn how to develop relationships with people that really weren't like where I came from, even though the golf club was right there in the city. These were doctors and lawyers and very successful people. So I had a choice between academic scholarships. The Evans Scholarship is if you're a caddy and you graduate with a 3.0 GPA or higher, you can choose whichever school you want to go to. And so what I did, I chose to go to University of Missouri. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play football. So my educational background was pre-engineering. I just didn't know that, I thought that if you want to be an engineer, you need to focus on your engineering classes. I didn't worry about my English class and my math class. So my overall GPA wasn't good enough to get into the engineering school. Also wasn't good enough to get into the business school, so I went over to the ag school, graduated a degree in hotel and restaurant management. I said, I got a plan now. I'll graduate a degree in hotel and restaurant management, I'll own my own restaurant, and I'll go pro. That's how I'm gonna do it. Well, I had dreams. There we go. Did I go too far? There we go. So I had a chance, I had a pretty good career. Played with the Chargers, the Lions, the Packers, the Broncos. I went in as a free agent. That all sounds good, but the reality is I got cut about 4 or 5 times. And I think one of the best stories is after my second year, we got married. After the first year, going into my second year, I said, hey, let me go out there and let me make the team first. And she said, no, you're not leaving me again. So she moved out with me, and 2 months later, I got cut. So we're in San Diego, the rent's $900 a month. We got 2 car notes. She doesn't have a job, I don't have a job. I remember thinking, how am I gonna keep my weight up because I want to get picked up by another team. And back then, we didn't have the protein powders and things like that. So I went, but Whoppers were 99 cents a piece. So I had $20 left. I went and bought 12 Whoppers, and I stacked them up in 3s. And I remember looking inside of the refrigerator thinking, I gotta make something happen before I run out of Whoppers. Oh man. We moved back to Missouri. We don't have a place to stay. She's staying on her friend, we're married, she's staying on her friend's sofa, I'm staying on my friend's sofa. Finally we get a place, and I get into grad school, and then I'm trying to play pro ball and go back to grad school. So, fast forward a little bit. When I became the director, this is a 2004 picture. when I became the director of strength and conditioning at the University of Missouri. Right next to me is Kyle Skazati. He was at Baylor, he's now at SMU. Next is Antoine Floyd. We worked together for 10 years. He's down in Houston now being a personal trainer. Scott Bird, still at Missouri. Scott's been in the profession probably 30 years. Blake Markway, he's a high school coach. Josh Stoner he just won the Division II National Championship last year at Texas A&M Commerce. Everybody knows Dr. Brian Mann. B was an intern for us at Tulsa, and then we brought him in as a graduate assistant, hired him as a full-timer, hired him as director of research. Man, he's done a lot of great things, but this goes back to 2004. Shannon Turley is the next one with the glasses on. He's the head strength coach at Stanford. He's been there for a long time, probably 10 years at Stanford with football. Shane McKenzie, she's in the military, and Jana Heitmeyer she's a nutritionist. She's been everywhere. She's currently at Georgia. So staff first. This right here is Halloween. And we like to have fun. We like to work hard. I think when you look back, and I'm going to get into this a little deeper. I'm just trying to get through this presentation faster so I can get to the end. But when you look at what we built at the University of Missouri, it was built on people. It was built on taking care of people. It was built on treating people with respect. It was built on working hard, but also playing hard. So this is Brian Mann, and Brian just was informed that his position is going to be eliminated. And I just got the text when I was sitting here today. He put it out there. So I told him I was going to mention, if you want a great person, if you got a spot for a director of sports science, a researcher at your university or somewhere, let me know. Get Brian there. He's the best in the business. He's smart, he's hardworking, one of the best people ever. We did a lot of great things, a lot of great research we did in Missouri. All right, that's pretty good form, right? Yeah. Triple extension. You got to be able to demonstrate. Now, I pride myself on being able to demonstrate whatever it was we were trying to teach our athletes. And I love, the offensive linemen are impressed. Skilled guys probably like, yeah, whatever. But that's pretty good right there. It took me probably an hour to warm up just to be able to do that. This right here is what we started at the University of Missouri. It was called Corrective Biomechanics and Preventive Medicine. We had physical therapists, people with doctors in physical therapy that would come and help us train our athletes. So listening to Eric Serrano, I wasn't smart enough to understand and learn all that stuff. We just found a way to bring those people into what we were doing. We would have athletes, so in season, we want to be able to squat on Sundays. Some guys are stiff, SI joints, things like that, hamstrings. What we would do is have the physical therapist right there doing corrective biomechanics, because you can't call it physical therapy because you need a script. So we call it corrective biomechanics, and then that way we can get around it because we don't want to violate any rules. This is Sheldon Richardson. I just put a few pictures of some players up here. Sheldon was a first round draft pick. He's been around the league. This is Tyron Woodley. And he, WFW, yeah, there we go. Champ, yeah, he wrestled at Missouri. We coached him at the University of Missouri. We brought him back to talk to our athletes about bullying. So, Michael Sam, anybody heard of Michael Sam? It's okay, you can raise your hand. Michael Sam was the first player to come out going into the draft as the first gay player. I was the first coach that Mike told. Now, you can look at his accolades. First nationally in sacks. First nationally in tackles for loss. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Doesn't matter, you know, the way things are, it doesn't matter. You come out and you say that you're gay, then we're not ready as a society for that. So we knew for years that Mike was gay, but it wasn't our business to put it out there, and it wasn't our business to criticize him for who he was. It wasn't. It was our business to love him for who he was. That's who we were. That's how we won championships. It was about respect. We may not agree, we may not like everything, but respect should never change. This is head coach Gary Pinkel. I don't know if there's a more demanding coach or supportive. This is us at the Lombardi Trophy where Michael Sam was one of the finalists. I don't know if there's a more demanding, supportive coach. He wanted 80% PRs on bench, squat, clean, 225, 85% on vertical jump, broad jump, 40-yard dash, 3 cone, and short shuttle. He wanted those PRs, and we had to produce those results. We had to be creative. That's where we learned how to do, back in 2004, velocity-based training. That's how we learned how to implement the APRE and do the research on what was the best, APRE or linear progression over a 12-week period in season back in 2007. Because we had to produce results. That's how we learned how to implement a level system, where level 0 was entry, level 1 was technique, level 2 was strength, level 3 was power, level 4 was about rate of force development, level 5 was training your NFL guys, level 6 is what the staff was doing before we implemented it into the program, and level 7 was some stuff that no one was ready to do. That's how we learned. Is because there was a demand placed on us that we had to produce results. And some people say, I don't like to chase numbers. You may not like it, but when you have to produce results, you will find a way. So that's what we did. That's when the Tendos came in, the gym awares, all of the science, being able to bring in physical therapists. That's when Brian Mann went back to school. That's when Andrew Paul went back to school, got his doctorates in physical therapy. That's when Jana Heitmeyer went back to school for 6 years after she had her undergraduate to become a registered dietitian. That's when that's when we built what we had. Just a picture of my oldest daughter after a game, and she loved football. This is a picture of Pro Day. ESPN, cameras, doesn't get any bigger than that. So we did a lot of great things. This is after beating Texas A&M, I believe, when they were #1 with Johnny Manziel in the nation. SEC championship game. Second year in the SEC, we weren't supposed to be there. We went back to back, 2013 and 2014, to the SEC championship. Bowl games, all that stuff's fun. Part of winning. That's Big Sur in the middle. Going to Hawaii, being asked to speak over in Hawaii twice. Taking your family, that's all good. It's fun. Enjoyed it. It's my dad, Ivey Trucking. After moving from Detroit, he bought the house in 1974. The house was $27,000. Sold it 6 years ago. It was worth $5,000. Because the housing market in Detroit was that awful. $5,000 cash over 40 years. He had to start over, so he went into trucking. After he retired, he had to build a new house, start over. This is the Ivey family farm down in Georgia. So just a little bit about me. I like to garden. I like to smoke. I like to race. I like to hunt. I like to fish. Most of all, I love to coach. I love to coach. So I became a master strength conditioning coach back in 2012. One of the biggest honors of my life. Some great people in that picture. Kaskazadi, he was Shannon Turley, who was on our staff, who's at Stanford, was Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year in 2011. Kaskazadi was Strength Coach of the Year in 2012. I was Strength Coach of the Year in 2013. We all worked on the same staff. So all of these things, there were some things missing. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know. There were some things missing. So I went back to school. The reason I went back to school, well, let me back up. My wife she got her PhD back in 2000. I said, she's staying up to 4 in the morning. I'm getting up at 4 in the morning. That's stupid. I'll never do that. So don't ever say never. Never say never. I went back to school because had a player, when we lost in the national, we lost to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and he looked up at me and said, Coach, what's missing? We're bigger, we're fast, we're strong. No one works harder than us. No one. I said, I don't know. I don't know what we're missing. And I discovered that we were missing the psychology part. So I went back to school. I studied how to focus, the 5 skills of focus. I studied time orientation. I studied positive affirmations. I studied composure and optimal arousal. I studied confidence and how you build it. I studied concentration and the 4 pillars of emotional stability, emotional resilience, emotional strength, emotional responsiveness, emotional flexibility. I studied motivation, internal, intrinsic, external, extrinsic, approach, avoidance, positive, negative. Studied all of those things to bring it back. The purpose was to bring it back. My dissertation, I wanted to look at deliberate preparations beyond physical and technical training impacted the meeting. So I studied our players that played in the NFL that were either starters, Pro Bowlers, or Super Bowlers. And these are the questions. Beyond physical and technical training impacted the meeting the challenge of the National Football League, leading to the success and high performance and achieving highly recognizable being a starter Pro Bowl status, attempting to discern what were the defining challenges and what were the specific deliberate preparations that supported their success. Was there strong identification with personal values, beliefs, and strong sense of self-determination present? Did it impact the necessary motivation, willpower, persistence, and perseverance to achieve success? Was there a strong sense of autonomy present in supporting and allowing the athletes to make the right choices in response to critical challenges, leading to and defining outstanding performance, culminating in success and winning at the highest level? So here's what I found. It was real simple. Our players said the best of the best, the elite of the elite, say they play for their name on the backs of their jerseys. All of that 200-page dissertation, they play for their name on the back of their jersey. Meaning they play for the pride of who they are, their family's name. They play for their father who wasn't there and they want to establish their family name. They play for their family names if their 2 older brothers disgrace their family name. They play for their son who they want to be proud of, who they want their son to be proud of them. They play for their names. So it goes against what coaches say, there's no I in team. Because the best of the best, they're responsible. They look at what is their responsibility to do what they need to be doing. They look at how can they be accountable to do what they need to do. They care about the team, but they care about legacy. I had a chance to write a book, Complete Conditioning for Football with Josh Stoner. We put everything that we did, we put it in there. It was a great experience. It's a book, it's a DVD, it's good. Had a chance to write chapter 16 in this book called Winning Kids with Sport. I wrote the chapter on mental toughness. Had a chance to meet Mr. October, Reggie Jackson. Anybody know who that is? Marcus Luttrell, yeah, had a chance to meet him. And that was just a little bit about just to get you to what I really want to talk about today, I guess. And that was what happened on the campus at the University of Missouri in 2015. Something that changed everything that we thought we were building. So on our campus, I was asked to do a lot at the University of Missouri. I was on 6 different committees on top of my job because of what our leaders saw and thought I could offer. I was on a committee called Men for Men. I was in charge of leading chairing a group, a committee to help our athletes with social issues. We talked about everything social, all the way up to race and racism. That was my job on top of my job. We had leadership issues at the university. We had down the street, down I-70, Ferguson, issue with Mike Brown, with several of our students that attended the university. My coaches on my staff came to me a year before that happened in 2014 and said, we're having some issues. Some of our athletes don't seem as coachable as they used to be. They don't seem to trust us as well as they used to in December of 2014. So we did some staff training on how to address and figure out what some of these issues were. Some of the staff members talked about their family's history dealing with some of the difficult issues that our nation dealt with. And I found myself in a place where we had athletes that had questions. I had staff members that had questions. We had administration that had questions. I had questions, and a lot of people were looking for answers. And I found myself at that intersection of looking for answers. Things were happening on our campus that we were unaware of that would shift everything that I thought I was working towards. We did a session called Why is Race and Racism So Hard to Talk About? This, as a committee, this is what we decided. It was Monday of a bye week. Things were happening on our campus that none of us were aware of because we live in this athletic bubble. And our athletes became involved. They decided they would join the sides of the students, and then there was a protest and a boycott. I was called to campus, it was during the bye week, to find out what was going on. I didn't see any players, but it was tweeted out that they would not play against BYU. Now, because of my involvement in trying to help, I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that there needed to be someone that people needed to point the finger to or look for answers or blame. And the reality is, all I ever tried to do was help. All I ever tried to do was love my university. All I ever tried to do was love my players, take care of my head coach. the rest of the coaches, administration. When the players protested, then when the coaches, when we supported our players, when we locked arms and took pictures, that right there upset a lot of people. That upset a lot of powerful people, people that have a lot of influence, money, politicians, business owners. And when Coach Pinkel, who was battling cancer at the time, resigned at the end of the season, that was a chance to make change and start clean. So I've heard that either from people that I was the one who instigated it, and then once people find out who I am and they understand what I'm really about, then they say, well, oh, if he's that, then he should have been the guy that stopped it. He should have stopped it. Anyway, I found myself called into an office and was told I would no longer be at the University of Missouri when I thought I would retire at the University of Missouri. And with a head coach that I had played with and coached and had known for 20 years, it was above him. So I found myself on campus with a job that was created to help make things better in a new division called Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And I became an assistant vice chancellor for access and leadership development, trying to help with community engagement, legislative relations, and access. Did that for a year and a half. And I had to wear a suit and tie every day. There's only one day I went to work where I didn't work out for an hour to 2 hours before I went to work. It was the worst day ever. I used to have to go to work and almost take my clothes off again and turn my fan on because I wasn't used to wearing a suit and tie. While I drove past the stadium that I played in, the weight room that I helped to design and build, that I was no longer allowed to walk in. And my name's on the building, in the glass, on the brass plaque. Doing that job and getting a phone call from my youngest daughter's teacher saying, you need to get to the school right now, meeting with the counselor because your daughter wrote a note to her classmate that is very disturbing. And then meeting with the counselor and the counselor saying, your daughter is thinking very seriously bad things because she's worried about you and you losing your job. So having to deal with that, when you have something that you tried to build and you thought you were doing it for the right reasons, and then it's all taken away or things change, then you find out what you have, what's really left. And this is what I had left. I had my relationship with God and I had my family. Nothing else mattered. The nice weight room that I helped design, the wall color that I picked, none of that mattered. It was only about my family, my friends. I called Bert Soren because I didn't have a place to work out anymore. And Bert said, give me the dimensions of your basement. Send me a rack so I could lift. Now, what I didn't tell you is going back to get them guys off of my back, I started lifting weights in my basement. When I said it would never happen again, I would never lose a fight again, and I would never let anybody do that to me again or my family, like that started in my basement lifting weights, listening to Public Enemy. And that Rebel Without a Pause, Welcome to the Terror Dome. My mom wanted to know what was that screeching sound in those songs. But I built myself up in that basement, lifting weights, so that one day when I did get off the bus and Johnny across the street wanted to fight, and I said, let me put my books up. My mom said, what are you going to do? I said, Johnny wants to fight. So what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to fight. Because I've been lifting 3 times a day. I come back out. Johnny said, are you ready to fight? I said, oh yeah, I'm ready. He said, why are you ready? I said, I've been getting ready. I've been in the basement, Public Enemy. I've been pounding weights. I've been benching 3 times a day. I didn't know how to do anything else. Johnny said, what you been doing? I said, I've been lifting. I've been training. He said, where? I said, in the basement. Johnny said, can I see it? We come in the house, Mom was going, said, Mom, me and Johnny were going to go downstairs and lift weights. So when I called Bert, I was back, I was 13 again. I was 13 again, in the basement, lifting. Never let yourself get attached to something that you're not willing to walk out on it. In how many seconds?
30 seconds flat.
30 seconds flat. I love this movie. This is my favorite movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to go back and see it. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. The famous scene is when they're sitting at the coffee. You all probably seen it. They're sitting at the coffee shop. I don't know how to change. Neither do I. I don't want to do anything else. Neither do I. I was willing to walk out on the assistant vice chancellor job. When we were over in China, we decided that the day we got back, I was going to resign from being assistant vice chancellor. The next day, I was going to drive down to Arkansas State with no job. 30 seconds flat. So I rejoined up with Kaz Kazadi. He got the head job down there. I said, I don't need anything but a floor. And if you can give me some money for gas, that'd be great. I drove down. We got back from China on July 26th. I resigned on the 27th. I drove down on the 28th to be introduced to the Arkansas State football team as an assistant strength and conditioning coach with 30 minutes to spare before I got to Jonesboro. With no position, I left a 6-figure plus job. And I love this picture because I don't know where that smile went, but I found it. Somebody caught it, but it was gone. When you have something and you love it, if you love this, you got to know why you want to do it. You got to know what fills you up. It can't be based, like Brandon said, it can't be based on what's on the outside. It's got to be based on what's on the inside. It's got to be based on your why, your purpose. And helping young people to excel, young men, young women be the best they can be, to find that little 13-year-old boy, to get them bullies off his back, whether they're physical, actual bullies, or just bullies up here in their head. That's what drives me. That's what drives me. So here, I get down to Arkansas State. A week later, they offer me a full-time position. And I turned it down. I said, I'll take the part-time position. They said, we didn't offer a part-time position. I said, well, you offered a full one. I just want part of it. because my family's 5.5 hours away, and we just made this decision a week and a half ago. We were in China. We got back, I was still jet lagged, and I'm down here. And plus you're gonna try to stick me with another sport I don't wanna coach. I just wanna coach football and drive back and forth to Missouri. So Kaz got the job at SMU. They offered me the head job, so I'm an assistant AD for athletic performance as of January 23rd. And I'm sleeping on the floor, still. My mattress is on the floor. And I'm not sleeping in a bed till my family comes back and we rejoin. So that might be a year from now, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's next. I've got my values, I got what I believe in. If you've ever been through tough things, people that told you weren't gonna be something, if you just gotta believe, you gotta go to that place where it's just you and your voice with whatever you believe in and find out what drives you. Because one day somebody might take what you thought was important away, or it might leave. It's the Chinese bamboo. I don't know where I am in the process. Sometimes I feel like I'm the one that's sprouting out. Sometimes I feel like I'm still in the ground, but I know I'm still alive. So as long as I'm alive, I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep driving. I'm gonna keep motivating. I'm gonna keep being the best version of me I can be. Thank you. Any questions?
Anybody got any questions?